Hello everybody. Welcome to the session where we will be discussing elaborately about DIA. As I mentioned in the previous session, DIA stands for Development Interface Agreement, and this is considered to be a RASI for functional safety. I assume everybody knows what RASI means. RASI, but anyway, just I'll briefly touch upon what is meant by RASI. RASI, RASI stands for R stands for responsibility, A stands for approval, S stands for support, and I stands for informed. Now, as you go along RASI, it shows the increasing authority of the people in the project. For example, R is the person who does hands-on of the given project, and I is the somebody like a project manager or project leader who is informed about the progress of the project. Now, the objectives of this DIA are the interactions and dependencies between customers and suppliers for development activities. So, where exactly is customer dependent on supplier, and which aspects supplier is dependent on the customer. So, all these things will be clearly outlined, all these things will be clearly defined and clearly mentioned in black and white, so that there is no further ambiguity in the future. Next objective is to describe the allocation of responsibility. Okay, as I mentioned, it is a RASI chart, and a clear cut allocation or apportioning of the responsibilities is required. Okay, so next is to identify the work products to be exchanged for distributed developments of item and its elements, project deadlines, names and roles. So who is responsible for what, who is responsible for approval, who is playing the support role, who is playing the informed role, all is clearly mentioned in this particular DIA. As you can see, a sample DIA is mentioned in the lower part of the slide, where you can see who is responsible for the concept phase, who is responsible for product development at system level, at the hardware level, at the software level. We will be discussing FUSA at the system level, hardware level and functional software level in the coming sessions in a more elaborate manner. Who is responsible for HARA means hazard analysis and risk assessment. All these things should be clearly outlined and clearly mentioned in this particular DIA. And sometimes in this DIA, some names will come from suppliers, some name will come from the customers. Okay, as I mentioned, a clear cut definition of which aspects will be taken care by the customers, which aspects will be taken care by the suppliers will be clearly mentioned and clearly finalized here. And the reason is there should not be any further ambiguity as the project progresses. What is meant by safety plan? Safety plan is the most important work product right from development to servicing to commissioning to decommissioning if required and done. Now, safety plan clearly mentions exhaustive information like deadlines, roles and responsibilities. And FUSA manager should ensure safety plan is perfectly aligned with the overall project plan. And FUSA manager should ensure there are no discrepancies. Okay, in the safety plan, how exactly each and every component is going to be developed so that it meets the overall FUSA development. That safety plan, that clear cut plan is called the safety plan. And what is meant by safety case? Safety case is the argument along with the conclusive evidence comprising of all the work products for the elements and systems that FUSA has achieved. So this is more like a use case along with the evidence. In the safety case, a use case is clearly mentioned and evidence is also clearly mentioned or shown that the entire project the component is going to align or it is going to meet the FUSA standards for the entire life cycle. Every project with a safety goal and corresponding ASIL has a safety case. And safety case can be developed for semiconductor, software, hardware or any embedded system. As I mentioned, safety case can be developed for even any component. It can be a software also is the component, hardware also is the component, embedded system, semiconductor. What is embedded system? Semiconductor plus software is embedded system. So embedded system minus software is a semiconductor and it can be applied to semiconductor also. Usually in a passenger car can have around 500 to 600 safety cases. Around 500 to 600 safety cases are necessary for a particular automobile. In general, a passenger car. It also contains of all the product specifications, including item definition and technical specification. Safety analysis, which includes DFMEA, fault tree analysis, HARA requirements, verification validations, including Hill, Sill, Dill. What is meant by Hill, Sill, Dill, will? Hill stands for hardware in loop, Sill stands for software in loop, Dill stands for driver in loop, and VIL stands for vehicle in loop. So when a safety case clearly mentions what are all the various verification and validation reports, because it is during the safety case you develop some hypothetical scenarios the where the vehicle is going to operate in the actual world. So what are the various risks, what are the various challenges which are encountered during the development of project? All these things will be clearly outlined, and all the concerned work products will be finalized, and approval for release statement and signature by the assessor. So it is a safety case is completed. It is considered a conclusive safety case when there is a clear-cut release statement and an approval signature by the assessor. I mean, there will be an assessor who will be supervising this entire safety case, and only after his signature the safety case is considered complete. Now let's see some examples of the safety goals. A safety goal is a top level safety requirement that is assigned to an item. Aim is to reduce the risk or one or more hazardous events to harmless minimum and tolerable level. So let's see some examples which are mentioned below. For example, a safety goal is unintended deployment of restraint systems in no crash situation. For example, an airbag should not deploy when there is no accident. There has been some scenarios where a vehicle's bumper just touched a particular curb. I mean, there was no accident. There was no accident. A driver by mistake or unintentionally touched a curb and immediately safety bag deployed. So that is unintentional, and that is a hazardous situation. So to preventing that hazardous situation is a safety goal. Alright, for example, another safety goal is unintended vehicle acceleration. Okay, in one of the previous videos I mentioned how a vehicle accelerated by itself, which led to the fatality of all the 4 occupants. Other safety goal is unintended engagement of rear differential lock in safety critical situation. If the differential lock automatically gets engaged, then there is a big problem when the driver is trying to turn the vehicle in any junction. So all these things are various safety goals which needs to be addressed. Now, after the development, there is something called building of trust, and building of trust comes only after the confirmation measures. And what are the 3 main important confirmation measures that are widely prevalent? First is confirmation review, second is functional safety audit, third is functional safety assessment. Okay, what is meant by confirmation review? Verification that work product is offering adequate and persuasive proof of its contribution to the attainment of functional safety while taking into account the relevant ISO 26262 goals and requirements. And a confirmation review can also be done multiple times for a given work product. For a given work product, functional safety confirmation review can be completed multiple times. And it also includes the formal review of work product, and it is usually done by independent third party, which is usually external to the company. See, this is not mandatory. Doing a confirmation review by third party is not exactly mandatory, but it is usually preferred because it ensures that the concerned OEM or the tier 1 company has not resorted to any fraudulent practices or any kind of any cheating. That's the reason usually an external assessor is the one who performs this confirmation review. And let's briefly touch upon what is the difference between audit and assessment. Now, audit and assessments are two big topics in itself, but let me try to explain in a brief manner. Audit is nothing but examination of implemented process with regard to process objectives, whether A process, first of all, audit means the company should have clearly outlined process and also process objectives, and an auditor makes sure that the process is properly implemented and it is perfectly aligned with the in writing process. So whether you have a proper record of process objectives, or whether it is a proper and also you have to ensure that the process are perfectly aligned with the in written process, are perfectly getting implemented in line with the process. What is meant by assessment? Assessment is examination whether characteristic or the element achieves the ISO 26262, whether all the specifications of the product are clearly mentioned as mentioned or met. Assessment means to ensure that the item the item is clearly meeting all the specifications and it is perfectly in line with the various ASIL levels which are decided during the development.